Welcome back to this deep learning playlist. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you are new here and consider watching all the tutorials in sequence to have a better grip on the subject. So today in this lecture we are going to learn about perceptrons. It is the most fundamental topic within the field of deep learning. So this topic becomes really important for you in case you are just getting started with deep learning. Also, this topic is really important in terms of interview perspective as well. So let's go ahead and try to understand that what is a perceptron and what is the basic idea behind it. So perceptrons, or you can say neurons, are the building blocks of a neural network. So the figure that you can see on the right hand side, this one, is actually representing a neural network. In case you do not have any clue about neural network, then for the time being you can consider this as an algorithm or structure which is used for supervised problems. Now I am assuming that you are at least familiar with the concept of supervised or unsupervised problems from the fundamentals of machine learning. If not, then I would suggest that we have recently covered an entire playlist on machine learning. So you can cover that playlist first. It will take around 2 to 3 days max. Then you can come back to this particular playlist to continue your journey with deep learning. Okay, now coming back to the topic, when we are talking about this structure which is called a neural network, then you will observe it is made up of these blocks, these fundamental blocks, which are actually called the perceptrons. So the figure that you can see on the left hand side, it is nothing but a representation of these fundamental blocks. So before we go ahead and understand the function or basic concepts of a perceptron and also that how exactly it is forming this entire neural network, let's quickly cover some basic concepts around biology. That will be helpful to understand these concepts as we move forward. So although biology was an optional subject for me back in school, but still I will try to come up with a good explanation as per whatever knowledge I have. So let's start with this figure that you can see on the right hand side of your screen. This picture is representing the nervous system which is present in all of our bodies. In case you have never heard before about nervous system, then let me tell you that it is kind of a network which is spread throughout our bodies from top to bottom, and this network is responsible to send the signal to your brain when you suddenly touch something hot or cold, or let's say you are accidentally stepping on a sharp object. At that time, this network, which is present from your feet to your brain, this will immediately shoot a signal on your brain. Then your brain will process the information and then will send the signal back to your feet with a command that you need to remove the feet from that sharp object to avoid the accident. And you can imagine how fast this reflex action happens practically. And on the left hand side, we have a picture of a neuron. Now neurons are the fundamental blocks which is creating this entire nervous system in our bodies. And these neurons are extremely small. You will not be able to see it with naked eyes, and billions of neurons like this will be forming this nervous system or the network of nervous system in the entire body. Although I will not be able to give you a complete breakdown of the function that happens at the different parts of this neuron, but I will try to provide you some basic idea that what actually happens. So these tentacles like structures that you can see at the head of the neuron, its job is to receive the signal from the different parts, and at the nucleus over here, some sort of chemical reaction happens. It tries to extract some sort of information from the signals which is being received from these tentacle-like structures. And then the final output will travel down to the chain at the tail area. And then again on this part, head of another neuron will be attached over here. I'm sorry for the drawing. It is actually looking like a cat, so I will erase it. All I'm trying to say that head of other neuron will be attached at the tail of this particular neuron, and whatever information this neuron has extracted at the nucleus, it will be sending down to the chain, which will be then received by other neuron from its head. And as I said earlier, billions of neurons like this one is actually forming this entire nervous system. So you can see one neuron is ending over here, and the signal is being transmitted to the other neuron from this part. And exactly the same way, billions and millions of neurons are connected with each other that takes the input from different parts of our bodies and then will send the signal to the brain, and accordingly the brain will respond back to the respective parts of the body. So being a guy from the analytics department, this was my best attempt in order to explain a biology concept. And the only reason that we are trying to gain some knowledge around these topics is that the topic of perceptron or neural network within the field of deep learning is actually inspired from this concept. So if you pay attention here, you can see that this perceptron is also receiving some sort of inputs like here, here, and this one, which is then being sent to a specific area that is doing some calculation in order to produce the output. And this is just one single perceptron or neuron. And you can see multiple perceptrons like this is actually forming this entire structure of a neural network. So this idea of using this perceptron as a building block of this neural network is actually inspired from the topic that we have seen earlier about neurons and the nervous system. If you will do a parallel comparison between a neuron and perceptron, then we cannot say at all that the similarity is too much. In fact, the complexity of a neuron is far greater than the complexity of a perceptron. Of course, because it is a structure which is made by God or nature, and this concept or structure on the other hand is created by humans. But still, the idea of a perceptron is so much inspired from the structure of a neuron. And you will understand that as we discover the function of a perceptron in details going ahead. So perceptrons are structures or algorithms which can be used for a regression problem like this or a classification problem like this one. So now let's move into the nitty-gritty details of the function of a perceptron. Let's assume that for the time being we are solving a regression problem and we are trying to predict the price of a house using this perceptron, okay? And in order to predict the price, we have few features, let's say X, which can be considered as the number of bedrooms, then Y, assume it as the number of bathrooms, and Z can represent the area of the entire house. So let's say that we have these three features in order to predict the price of the house. So these are the features that we have, 1, 2, and 3. So you can see very first thing this perceptron is doing, it is receiving the inputs from all the features. Let's say it is receiving the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and the area of the house. Secondly, to each of these features, some sort of weights or you can say importance has been provided, which is represented as W0, W1 and W2. So obviously if you have covered the fundamentals of machine learning, then you will be aware with the concept of weights. And then finally at this point, some sort of calculation is happening. So I'll tell you what happens over here. So basically over here at this point, we use an activation function. Some of the activation functions are ReLU, TANH or softmax. Going ahead, we are going to have a dedicated lecture on activation functions where we are going to cover all types of activation functions which is majorly used in deep learning. So for the time being, you don't have to pay much attention over here. Just assume that some sort of function is being used at this point. And I will try to explain you with the help of an equation that what exactly is happening over here. So first of all, I will quickly erase all this. So we have our first feature X, okay? And let's say the weights assigned to X is W0 plus the second feature which is Y, and the weight assigned to this feature is W1 plus the third feature which is Z, and the weight assigned to this feature is W2. And obviously we will also have a bias term. So the value of this feature is being multiplied with this weights. The value of this feature is being multiplied by this weight, and so on for the third feature as well. And after doing this entire calculation, the information will be sent over here at this point. So let's assume this entire equation as A, okay? So A is the information which is being sent out to this particular point. And let's say the final output which is being calculated from this point will be called A1. So A1 will be produced after we apply some function on this value of A. And this function is actually called the activation function that we are going to discuss in details moving ahead within this playlist. But in simple words, if you are using a simple linear activation function, then it will draw a straight line like this one over here to predict the price of the house. And in case if you are using it for classification, then you can use an activation function accordingly like sigmoid. In that case, this will try to interpret the information in such a way that it can be used for a classification problem as well. So in a nutshell, this is what it is happening when we are talking about the function of a perceptron. So let me quickly erase these things and let's have a quick recap over here around perceptron function. So we will take the input values for all the features, which will be then multiplied to the respective weights, and the final equation will be sent to this layer where we have an activation function, and depending upon what kind of problem we are trying to solve, we use an activation function accordingly, which will interpret the received information to provide a suitable outcome. And then again, if we assume this output value as y hat, then we calculate the loss by using some sort of loss function, and then in order to reduce that loss, we do a back propagation over here to optimize the value of these weights. Now you will have some understanding what I'm trying to say over here if you have covered the topic of chain rule or back propagation in the machine learning fundamentals, and pretty much same kind of thing happens over here as well. However, within this deep learning playlist, we will also have a dedicated lecture on back propagation or chain rule. So don't worry about that. We will also discuss that in details. So we have seen what is the function of a perceptron, how exactly it works, and how it can help us in order to solve a regression problem or a classification problem. Now it is time that we discuss a big issue that comes along with perceptron function. With whatever concept we have covered so far with the function of a perceptron, you can clearly understand that it is doing well in terms of making predictions when the data is linearly separable or whenever there is a linear relationship. However, this won't be able to perform well when we have a non-linear data. So I'll try to explain what I'm saying. In case you have a data set like this, where the data is not linearly separable, instead, you need to apply some sort of non-linear function to classify two different data points. In that case, one single perceptron will not be able to do the job. It can do well whenever the data is linearly separable. However, it will not be able to capture this non-linear relationship. And in order to tackle this issue, we use the concept of multi-layer perceptron that we will cover in the next topic. So that will be a foundational topic to gain understanding on neural networks. So please do not miss that. If you have already subscribed, then also consider pressing the bell icon so that you can get notified as soon as I'm uploading that video. And please do not forget to drop a like below if you found this video helpful. Also, let me know your thoughts below in the comment section. Let me know if you liked this video, if you liked my explanation. And also let me know if you are not liking any particular thing about my way of teaching or the explanation within this tutorial. I will try to make changes accordingly then. So this was it for today's lecture. Thank you very much for watching the video till the end. You have a nice day ahead.